Ganassi, and what you guys are tuned in for today is a 10-minute condensed highlight of everything you need to know that happened literally just yesterday in the car space. Now let's get into it, shall we? Let's do it. The first vehicle that you guys are looking at today is the MercedesBenz Eactros. Now, this is an all-electric, heavy-duty truck designed for short radius distribution. Now, this thing leverages two motors, but those two motors are placed on the rear axle. Now, the reason for that is to ensure that they had enough space for the batteries, because they need it. This thing got a lot of batteries. With either a 315 kilowatt hour or 420 kilowatt hour battery available, that is nearly 3 or 4 times the amount of battery that is, 3 to 4 times higher than the amount of battery you would find in the highest electric vehicle today. Now, that combined with both of those motors is good for 442 horsepower and 536 pound-feet of torque. That is powered through a 2-speed transmission that Mercedes says they put in there for better acceleration. Now, the Eactros can do 248 miles of range, which is why it was designed for short radius distribution only. Mercedes will actually work with you if you choose to purchase one of these to ensure that you have all the tools needed to be successful, including helping you plan a charging infrastructure and helping you apply for grants to make the switch to electric vehicles as cost effective as possible. They're trying to do anything and everything they can to get you behind the wheel of an Eactros and overall just save some time and some money. Now, the next bit of news that we have today is coming by way of the fine folks at Toyota. Last year in January, Toyota announced a program to start reproducing and remanufacturing some old parts for the older Supras. Now, the A70 model and the A80 model Supra are getting some more love thanks to the demand for all of those parts. The A70 Supra is set to get things like a clutch master cylinder, clutch release cylinder, brake hose, heater hose, AC control panel knobs, front emblems, side protection moldings, rear emblems, garnishes, suspension, lower arms, and bushings for the A70. Now, for the A80, which is the newer one, the one that everybody loves, the one that everyone associates with the Supra, this guy right here, parts that are coming for that, in addition to what is already created, are things like oxygen sensors and front bumper covers and headlights, which are huge. If you're going to be reproducing or fixing up your older Supra, you're going to want to use OEM quality stuff, and Toyota is giving you that possibility with this adding of a full suite of parts. Now, the next vehicle that we are going to talk about today is not one, not two, but 3 vehicles from the same manufacturer. Now, the reason why I'm speaking about these 3 vehicles today is not because that they're going to be available in the U.S. off the cuff, but because of the potential that they could come here by way of partnership. Now, these 3 vehicles are the 3 new vehicles that are going to be coming from Alpine in the future. They are all electric, and they will help give the brand a full lineup that right now is just one vehicle. Granted, it's one tremendous vehicle in the Alpine A110. But the reason why I bring up these vehicles is not just because I'm excited for them, but because they could come here to the States as an Infiniti, Nissan, or a Mitsubishi, thanks to that partnership using some technology. Or they don't, and they're just badass, and I'm showing them to you anyway. So the first vehicle is a GT car that will go up against the Porsche Taycan and the Model S. It is going to be a powerful, comfortable, fun to drive sedan. That's that top one right there. It's going to be the first one we see in the series of 3 photos. It hopes to do battle and will likely be priced accordingly. This will probably have a $70,000 to $80,000 price tag at base. The second and most exciting, though, is a hot hatch. This guy right here, it leverages the design of the Renault 5 electric Super Mini, which is pretty clear. But what is also clear is it's got a big wing and it's got a hood scoop. And that last one, this one right here, is the A110 successor, and it is said to be co-developed with Lotus, and it leverages a mid-engine design for a very sleek overall picture. So super excited for these three vehicles, especially that hot hatch. Who doesn't want something with just a big ass rear wing on the back, right? Who doesn't want that? I know I do. And I could not be more pumped to see that thing come to a head. We should start to see these vehicles by the end of this year for a 2022 release. Hopefully that hot hatch is the first one, and hopefully that comes to the States as like a Mitsubishi Colt or Nissan Pulsar. I doubt it, but a man can dream, okay? Speaking of dreams, you got to use your imagination a little bit to really take a look at this, but what you guys are looking at right here is a preview image that Subaru unveiled yesterday as sort of a preheat, if you will, to the WRX, which is going to be unveiled later this year. Now, I don't know much about the WRX, but I know a few things, and I'm going to tell them to you right now, okay? Number one, the engine that is going to be powering this thing is likely going to be the FA24F, which for those of you that aren't privy to Subaru engine codes, first off, I don't blame you. Second off, I got you, baby. This is the engine that is in the Outback XT, and in the Subaru Ascent, it is a 2.4-liter direct-injected turbocharged engine. I believe that in the WRX, it'll make 300 horsepower, and in the STI, it'll make around 400. Now, the reason why I think those numbers are what they will be is pretty simple. Number one, the competition for the WRX has gotten even faster, the GTI, the Veloster N, etc. Number two, the current generation STI is left for dead by its competition. The Civic Type R, the Golf R, the GLA AMG, the Audi RS3, etc., are either higher on power or lighter and use that power more efficiently. And because of that, the Subaru is behind. And although the Subaru kept this segment alive for a really long time, they really got to blow it wide open if they want to keep or bring back some of the buyers of their cars. Now, we can expect this car to make its debut later on this year, but don't expect anything crazy in the looks department. Subaru said that this car is going to take a lot from their recent concept, but at the end of the day, it's still based on the Impreza. So looking at this top line, right, it's got the same shape. The things that are going to change, that hood scoop, which we can see, it's going to have a different front fascia and a different rear fascia. The interior, largely going to be Impreza with some nice seats, which is fine. It's a good place to be. But if you're expecting something that'll rival like the Golf R in terms of interior, look somewhere else. That was never Subaru's game. But I'm excited for this thing to come out. I'm excited to see what this thing provides, because Subaru, with that last generation or current generation WRX and STI, produced a hit in 2015. So it'll be awesome to see what they can do here in 2021 for the 2022 model year. Now, the last vehicle that we're going to be talking about in this condensed news segment is probably one of the more exciting developments from Porsche, and it is a car that we called last week. So if you guys were here last week, you already know everything I'm about to say. You even knew what this model was going to be called. This is, in fact, the Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT. Now, this is the first time that the GT brand name has been applied to the Cayenne. And last week when we talked about this car, we were trying to think about what the name would be. Now, we knew it was based on the Cayenne Turbo, but what we didn't know was how they were going to go about naming it. Were they going to call this like a GT5? Were they going to call it a GT8 because it was a V8? And what Porsche landed on was incorporating the name of the vehicle it was based on, which is the Turbo, and just adding GT at the end of that, so that people know when they're looking at this, that they're looking at something that is serious. They're looking at something that's track ready. They're looking at something that is built for thrills. And that is exactly what this Cayenne GT or Turbo GT is. Now let's get into the details. And this is where we're going to end it. And there's a lot of details here, so I'm going to rifle them off pretty quickly. But you'll know them all, I promise, okay? Powering the Turbo GT is a 4-liter twin-turbo V8 from the Cayenne Turbo. It receives a bump in 90 horsepower for a grand total of 631 horse, 626 pound-feet of torque. Now, this wasn't just some ECU tune. This wasn't just a remapping that gave them the 90 horsepower, although it easily could have been, right? Modern turbo technology has shown us that 90 horsepower is seemingly just a tune away, right? If you own a GTI or any 2.0T product, you'll know that, right? But Porsche went a step further because a GT car is meant to be used on the track. A GT car is meant to be hustled, okay? And you can't do that with just a regular Cayenne turbo and a tune. You got to change some things, and change some things they did. Revised crankshaft, revised turbo, different intercooler, and a titanium exhaust to bring the weight down. Gets you that 90 horsepower. Durability, people. Durability. That's what they're after, okay? In addition to that, the all-wheel drive system also receives more cooling. The transmission receives a different tune. This thing is 17 millimeters lower thanks to an air suspension that's 15% firmer. In addition to that, this car has every acronym for Porsche suspension tuning, turning things possible. It has PASM, which is suspension management. It has dynamic chassis control. It has power steering plus, rear axle steering, all of which not only come standard on the Turbo GT, but are specifically tuned for the Turbo GT. In addition to that, it gets front wheels that are 1 inch wider. Its camber goes to negative 0.45 to increase that turn-in. It has carbon composite brakes as standard. The roof is also carbon fiber, which makes this the lightest Cayenne of them all, and that comes into play later. In addition to that, there is a specific spoiler that increases downforce by 40 kilograms and a specific diffuser. You'll know a Turbo GT from other Cayennes because of that front and rear fascia. That center exit exhaust should be a dead giveaway that you're looking at a Turbo GT. Now let's get into the performance and the price. The lightest Cayenne is capable of 0 to 62 in 3.3 seconds, which is half a second faster than the more powerful turbo hybrid Cayenne. Shout out to Power to Weight. In addition to that, this Cayenne Coupe GT has a top speed of 186 miles an hour, and its price is $180,000. Now, that is a $50,000 price premium over a Porsche Cayenne Turbo Coupe. But if you tried to spec a Cayenne Turbo Coupe like a GT, you would be well over that $50,000 threshold, thanks to having to add all of those PASM, DCC, power steering plus, all of that. Having to add the carbon composite brakes, having to add all of that, you'll get way past that $50,000 threshold. So it actually is a bargain when it comes to Porsche terms. Now, $180,000 also puts it $30,000 less than a Lamborghini Urus, which is a very, very good price point for this thing to be at. And when you compare it to the RSQ8, it is $70,000 more, but this is a more track-focused, track-dedicated machine. And that is the Cayenne Turbo GT. And that is all the news you need to know to be up to speed for everything automotive related on this June 30th, 2021. Now, if you appreciated, if you liked, if you enjoyed this segment, do not forget to subscribe to MoneyShift on YouTube or follow MoneyShift on Facebook. We do this every day during the week, and we give you all the information you need to know to be up to speed on the day's car news. Now, I am Thanasi. I am your host, and I will see you all tomorrow. Goodbye.